Alright, hey guys, in case you missed it, Force of Will, the company at least, released new information regarding their casters and architects, mainly how the games are going to be played and different things like that. So we thought we'd give it a rundown of both. I'll be going over architect and Oscar's going to be going over casters. I know there's another name, but I forget. But we'll be going over those so you guys can sort of see how the gameplay is, so sort of a preview to see if it's something you might be interested in. Both of them use pretty unique themes, both from each other and from Force of Will, so let's go ahead and get started. So how it starts is each player has just a straight 60 card deck, so it's not like Force of Will where you have a minimum 40, maximum 60. It's more like Pokemon and most other card games where it's just a flat number that you have to have. After that, you guys flip a coin, or it says rock, paper, scissors, roll dice, any form that you want to decide who goes first. Whoever wins, say, the dice roll, has to go first. It's not they choose to go first or second, they have to go first. So whoever's going first draws 3 cards, while their opponent draws 4 cards. So that's pretty interesting, and their opponent also gets what is the equivalent in Force of Will of an energized token. They get a token that produces Dyna, which is this kind of like Will in this game. It's sort of tricky. I'll be getting to that a little bit later. So to start out with, right now at least, there's 4 different kinds of cards. We have character cards, gear cards, command cards, and base cards. So character cards are going to be similar to resonators. And so that's pretty straightforward. You have their name, there's a guild they belong to, there's an amount they cost to play them, they have health, defense, and other abilities. Now, they also have, the next card is gear. So gear is something that you attach to said characters, and it, same things, has what ability it does as well as how much Dyna it costs. Command cards are similar to sort of your spell chant cards. So you can play them from your hand at essentially instant speed at any point, and you can also activate them outside of your hand, which is another thing I'll get to later in the video, but basically they're chant cards. And then you have bases, which once they can only flip. You don't necessarily play them from your hand, and they're a continuous effect as far as I can tell. And if you notice, both of those don't have cost in the top left like these two do. They have a number in the top right, which is a little bit different. So I'll also get to that a little bit later, I promise. It'll all come together. So each opponent is going to be starting with 20 HP. If you look over here, they release what the playmat looks like. At the bottom, you're going to have your HP is what it has on this playmat. I'm sure you can just use a 20-sided dice or something like that. But you start with 20. You have, it's your normal stuff, your deck, your graveyard, and your HQ zone. So your HQ zone is a very important. This is where you're going to be playing cards face down. You can play any card in your hand face down, and that counts towards your Dyna. So I'll essentially just go through how your normal phases will work, and I'll explain how Dyna works and all that as we go through. So you start out with your recovery phase, assuming it's coming into your turn. So you recover all your cards, you heal any damage that was dealt to any of your cards, and it erases any Dyna that might have been produced as well. You then, during your draw phase, this is the interesting thing, you don't draw 1 card, you draw 2 cards for every single draw phase. So you do go through your deck a lot faster, in case you're wondering why you only start with 3 or 4 cards. I assume it's to counterbalance the amount of draw power that's going on. It's similar to most card games where if you go to draw and you don't have anything in your deck zone, you lose the game as well. So after your draw phase, you go to your build phase. So this is where I said you can choose any card in your hand and you can place it face down in your HQ zone here. And so the number of cards in here, say you have 3 cards, that's your tech level. So if you have 3 cards, your tech level is at 3. Now tech level, this is where it circles back around, refers to those chants and base cards in the top right. So those get played in accordance to your tech level, so you're not actually producing Dyna to play those, they're just played in accordance to your tech level. And those cards that are played face down, you can flip at instant speed, once again as far as I can tell, to play them. So if you have a command or a base inside of your HQ zone, and it meets your tech level requirement, you can flip it to play it, and you can flip it in response to your opponent playing as well as playing on your turn. And once that card is flipped, it stays in your HQ zone face up for the rest of the game. So in the case of commands, once it's flipped, its effect happens and there's just a dead card sitting in there. Bases, I assume, have continuous effects that keep going throughout the game, and they can only be activated inside of your HQ zone. Alright, so outside of your build phase, you next go to your recruit phase. So the recruit phase, you produce Dyna. So if you have 3 cards in your HQ zone, they'll produce 3 Dyna just sort of floating in the air to use this turn. And so you can use that to play your characters, and that's when you play your 3-cost character, and so on and so forth. You can play as many number of characters in gear, obviously, as long as it meets your Dyna requirements. And as soon as you end that recruit phase, all of that Dyna goes away. It doesn't carry over after your recruit phase. So as soon as you switch to your battle phase, all of that Dyna is erased and you just start to battle. So you can attack with multiple characters at the same time. Or you can attack with one at a time, as far as I can tell. And it has this cool thing called guild attack. So when you go to attack, if we'll go down to the resonators, not resonators, but whatever they're called here. I believe it's referring to this actor and military corps. It was a little bit hard to tell if it's referring to that or the symbol, I'll be honest, but one of those two things refer to the guild it belongs to. So if you have, say, 3, assuming that actor is what we're talking about, if you have 3 actors that are part of the guild, you can tell them all to attack at the same time and attack one resonator. So say they have a really strong resonator that has, maybe not really strong, just a resonator that has 3 defense, and you have 3 of these guys out with only 1 attack. You can attack simultaneously with all 3 of them to kill it, and it will only do damage to one of your characters that they choose. So that is what's known as a guild attack in this game. So I thought that was pretty interesting. And there's different effects that the characters have. So if their effect says decoy, say you're attacking and they have a character that says decoy, you have to attack that character before attacking anything else. Outside of that, you can either attack one of your opponent's characters or you can attack their HQ zone directly. And if you're attacking an HQ zone, then you're chipping away at their health, essentially, so like any normal card game. Outside of that, they do normal battle damage where you check their attack and HP. So outside of the attack phase, then you just move to your end phase where any effects that are happening end, and you just switch turns. So it's pretty interesting. It seems pretty straightforward, and it seems like there might be some pretty cool dynamics. I like it, the idea behind it. It seems like it'll be a pretty simple game to sort of get into. There's not a lot of complex mechanics, not a lot of really back and forth that could physically go on too much as of right now. I'm sure there's other things that could go on, but it'd be a really good entry-level game just from the looks of it. I just read over it real quick and got the gist of it pretty easily. It uses a chase. Like I said, command cards can be played at instant speed at any point in time, and then command and bases can be played at instant speed inside of your HQ zone. Yeah, so let me know what you guys think, and we'll move over to Oscar for casters.
What's up, guys? I'm Oscar. You may have seen me on the channel every now and then, mostly in gameplay videos. I leave all this front-facing stuff to Colin. You don't want to see this. But I'm going to talk to you today about Caster Chronicles. You may have just known of it before now as Casters, but Caster Chronicles is the name. It's one of the 2 games that they're coming out with, the other one being Architects. You heard from Colin. So what we'll go ahead and do is jump right on into this. Casters is going to have a 60-card deck, much like Architects did. One of the things that you're going to do here to get the game started is go ahead and determine who goes first. You're going to draw your hand of 7 cards. You're going to put that to the side. These are going to be general quick rules, by the way, kind of like if you bought a starter deck. These aren't the official rules, so there's probably a lot we're going to be missing here. So it doesn't clarify if you can look at that hand yet, but what we are going to do is once you draw your 7, you're going to put 7 cards into what they call the orb zone, which is going to go here on the side. Now, if you're familiar with Pokemon, they had a prize zone. It's going to work similar, but kind of, as weird as it sounds, the opposite of how the prize area works in Pokemon. Once you've set those 7 cards down, this is when you're going to go ahead and perform your mulligan. You just put down, say, set number of cards. You're going to draw that set number of cards back until you have the hand of 7, then you start the game. The person who won the, say, die roll, rock, paper, scissors, whatever it is, it's also forced to go first. You don't get the choice of choosing first or second. You just kind of roll straight into it. So you have these cards right here called casters. They're described as the cards containing the soul of magical girls. They're essentially going to be what produces your will or mana, whatever card game you're coming from. They're going to be, your source of income. Now, when these get attacked is when orb cards flip over. Now, you can only put down a caster card that has a total cost of 1, which is notified in the bottom right-hand corner of the card. You see there's a 2. I'll explain the 2 here in a second. Once you've gotten the 1 to play, you play servant cards. If you see the servant card right here, it has a total cost of 2. They do have attack and defenses as well as abilities on the card. Here's the cost of the card itself. It has a name and it has a race as well. They're servants. They serve the same purpose as a resonator would in Force of Will. You're going to put them into play. To put this into play, I would have to have produced 2 Aether. Each caster only produces 1 Aether. I'm going to go ahead and go on a limb here and assume that once you've moved up to a 2, it's producing 2 Aether. Now, there's also another thing you're capable of doing is putting face-down cards in your caster zone, which can then produce, just say, I want to say Void Aether, like a non-specified color. And you can use this as well to pay unless otherwise specified by a card. Some cards require you to pay their costs with certain types of casters. So the purpose of a servant is to do all your attacking. Like I said, it's like a resonator. The thing is, there's 2 methods of putting in a servant. You're either going to put them into an attack mode or to a defense mode. I think it's like Yu-Gi-Oh! I never played Yu-Gi-Oh! There's 2 purposes to each one. One's going to be capable of attacking. I'm assuming the other one's capable of blocking. Now, if you have one in defense mode and you go into an attack phase, you can't attack with it. There is a phase right before that. That's during your main phase, which allows you to recover one of those into a standing position to attack phase right before going into your battle phase. So you can then start attacking with them. Now, the point of the whole game is to get these servants to attack other servants. Now, the whole point of the game is to use your servants to attack the other opponent. You're actually only going to be attacking their servants that they have in play. One requirement is, it looks at the beginning of the game, like Pokemon, the first turn player isn't even allowed to attack. But going beyond that, if you do have a servant that is in attack mode and you go into attack phase, you have to attack with all your capable servants. Again, the point is when you start attacking across, you're attacking the opponent's servants, and then if they have no servants in play, you go to attack their casters. When you attack a caster is when an orb card from the orb zone would flip over from your opponent. So let's say I'm player A and I'm playing Colin. I go to attack, Colin. He has no servants in play. I had to attack his caster. Once his caster's attacked, he goes to draw one of his orb cards. Now, when a player runs out of all their orb cards from their orb zone, they lose the game. And that's how you would kind of win. So you got, I guess you can say 7 life, in other words. It's a really basic game, nothing too crazy. Now, if we go back to look at more of the cards, I talked to you a lot about servants because the basic backbone of this game, I feel, is casters and the servants and how they interact with each other. We haven't really gotten too much of the text and abilities that they're capable of and how they truly interact with each other. But some other things we have are going to be what's called a conjure, which is essentially a spell, like, say, destroy target servant or something of that sort. We also have what's called an enchantment. Enchantments will work just like the way addition resonators used to. It's something that's meant to attach to a servant and only a servant. And then we also have another card that's referred to as a barrier. That's just an addition field. Now, one thing that the rules here did state was that a barrier would apply its effect to every, say, servant of the same type. Now, it didn't specify that meant like if I have, I don't know, servant type A and my opponent has servant type A as well, if it's applying it to both of them or not. We'll have to find out later. Again, we have the quick guide rules, essentially. The second turn, the person who didn't win the die roll, who has to go second, also gets a coin, which will produce a void of some sort, the Aether, to play as much as they want. They banish it to produce a one type of Aether.